Good afternoon, everyone. It's fantastic to be with you here today in the FII with such an energizing and buzzing crowd. AI or die. That's a mantra that we've been hearing over the past couple of days, but also over the past couple of months. And got us thinking, why is it that there's so much hype around AI as a technology compared to other technologies that have been there for a couple of time? And one of the main things is to look for around the technology, which is an amplification of human potential. That has historically been the premise of technology overall. One aspect is, if we think about the human potential historically, we had physical exertion of power where people lifting 50 kilograms of mass for 1 meter, around 500 joules, take or give, is now amplified with the third and fourth industrial revolution to be 30 billion times more, with us launching a space station to space that's 400,000 kilograms and 400,000 meters away from the surface of Earth. In the same realm, if we reflect on that, on the potential of AI specifically, we are today operating at less than 1% of a human brain, of a single human brain. And if you think about the International Space Station moment for AI, that would mean we're speaking about orders of magnitude in the vicinity of 1 trillion X compared to where we are today. People might agree or disagree on the current benefits, the traction of AI, but the significant potential that that technology promises, if we take a future-oriented look, is significant. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome with me a very impressive set of esteemed panelists to speak about AI, its disruption in the industries today, and the future for technology, for people, and for governance. Let me start maybe by speaking about the current potential of AI, economically speaking. It's been forecasted that with digital economy, around 15% of the digital value, of the economic value, is captured by digital today, and that will be around 30% by 2030. AI specifically is capturing around $15 trillion of that GDP by 2030. That's equivalent to China's GDPs today, to get a sense of scale. Patrice, from your side, you run as the CEO and chairman of Thales. Can you give us your views, and where do you see industries and business models that will see the highest potential for disruption and will capture this value that we're speaking about?
Yeah, absolutely. The first potential, which is rather obvious, I'm not going to spend a long time on it, is clearly how to improve, optimize processes, I would say recurrent or recurring tasks, and so on and so forth. Where there is a huge potential, which is still untapped in our domain, is how to embed or to embark AI in safety-critical applications. As per the nature of what we do at Thales, we do defense, we do space, we do flight avionics, we do cyber, we do digital identity. All these type of applications, somewhere, the life of someone is at stake, if I may say. It's a bit caricatural, but that's what I mean by safety critical. Hence the fact that we cannot use the breed of AI we usually hear of, like Gen AI or neuronal networks. We need to embed trustworthy AI, made of typically model-based AI or symbolic AI. As a matter of fact, the human will stay in the loop in our domain to take the final decision, but clearly we need this transparent, understandable, and ethical AI more than ever in our businesses. And clearly the journey is far from being over, hence the fact that the potential is immense to augment our sensor, the potential of our sensor, to augment, to improve, enhance the decision aid-making systems that we put at the disposal of our customers, just to mention a few of the very numerous applications that we can improve in the future.
Very good. And I want to pose a similar question to you, Eric. Eric, you're the CEO of Addepar, and in that capacity, I think there's a thought that a lot of the AI potential is in developed market with proven business models with large companies that are having the willingness and the capacity to invest. Do you believe that this is where the main growth of AI will come through, or what's your view on that?
Yeah, well, from our perspective at Addepar, AI is a natural extension of our very deep investment R&D. So if you take traditional data pipelines and ingesting, somewhat similar to Patrice's point, data that has to be accurate and complete and precise. You can't, in the nature of our business, because we're aggregating data across complex investment portfolios, the calculations we're running and the decisions that are made based upon those outputs are really consequential. They have to be right every single time. So building AI to allow that set of capabilities to be available across a quasi-technical as well as non-technical audience of people who have investment questions, that can cut across different socioeconomic strata, but using that exact same foundation doesn't have to be reserved just for more developed nations, more sophisticated jobs. So taking the advances in AI, both in a Gen AI perspective, but I'd say at this point in time, even more importantly, some of the natural extensions of machine learning and AI techniques that have been around for several decades now, that's really where we're seeing the most impact in driving productivity improvements, and then making those available again to a broader audience of users where it doesn't require the same level of technology sophistication. You can kind of flatten out that learning curve.
Fantastic. And I want to move to Mihir. Mihir, you're the CEO of Automation Anywhere, and you already have a few billions of dollars in revenue by automating human tasks in different industries. Can you share with us your view on where are the key success factors to scaling AI within organizations, and where are the spots in which you are currently in the market seeing very pragmatic absorption of that demand?
Yeah, happy to. So we have about 300 million AI agents running today on our platform. They're running across virtually every industry. So transformation is happening across industries. But the ones that you see most in, because they are the largest employer, you see in banking and financial services, you see it in healthcare, you see in energy sector, and you see it in retail and manufacturing. There's 4 lists on the top of the list in terms of the largest transformation. And what we are seeing is you asked what are the key for the success factors. I would start by saying that the human decision to consciously change and evolve and transform is the most powerful force. And the fact that is the most important resource and a renewable resource that human beings have. So where we see the most impact is where the leaders take that role, decide to transform, reimagine operating model, and once they take this step, then along comes reskilling and upskilling, and they try different operating models. So this is the pattern that we see across various customers, that they will they'll run it on 2 different tracks. One track is current business, and run it 10x faster, better, cheaper. But the other model is reimagine the business model entirely and say, if I were to run this business after AI was introduced, what would I do it differently? And so those are the few ways how we see transformation happening across industries.
That's a great point, and I think that aligns with what we've heard earlier about this end-to-end rethinking of the entire model. That also, we have a rule that we call 10-20-70 rule, in which we put like 10% on the algorithms, 20% on the technology, and a mere 70% on people, process, organization, and governance, because this is often overlooked in transformations that are powered by AI at the moment.
That's absolutely
very good. I want to shift gears to speak more about the industry itself, or the engines behind powering the AI industry. And Markus, you're the CEO of Terra Quantum, and you're at the forefront of thinking about the future of computing overall. Can you share with us more, how does this intersection of new computing paradigms, including quantum and maybe hybrid computings between classic and quantum, will fuel this next wave of AI?
Yes, I think it's important because we see, classical AI is a big disruption, brings a big disruption, a lot of new applications. But what we see is, if we want to expand it, we are running into some technology constraint on the hardware side. Because if you look at, e.g., the current LLMs and the explosion of the parameters, if you think that you want to use it in the future, not only for human language, but let's say molecular docking for drug simulation or so. There is exponentially more molecular fragments in the universe than words in the human language. So you definitely need an exponential technology to support the next generation of Gen AI applications. So, and then you can think, well, you know, we have the classical AI wave and then a distinct later coming quantum wave. I think this is actually merging together because the quantum computing hardware needs more time. You need a few more years until those QPUs, quantum chips, can really do substantial things, beating best-in-class classical applications. But the solution is to do it today to use hybrid techniques. E.g., we can use existing GPUs to simulate the hardware framework on a classical computer to get some of the quantum magic, running the quantum algos on this simulated device to achieve a substantial performance enhancement already today. And you can do that in optimization, simulation, machine learning. I think that is the way forward and the next step which we will see.
Very good point. And one interesting thought that we discussed earlier was the move or a parallel to Gen AI is generative data. And computing paradigms like quantum and others are also opening up possibilities for in biology and physics where we have like some equations, scientific equations governing the data in which you can generate significant amounts of synthetic data that you can use then later on for specific simulations and for specific models. So I think that would be fantastic. I want to go more specific. Shishir, you're the CTO of CDeep AI. You have a very interesting business model and a very specific way of looking into the marine life and the undersea, under ocean ecosystem and using AI to create more efficiency there. Can you tell us more about that particular area?
Yeah, so if you think about what drives AI the most, it's the underlying data. And when you look at ocean in general and the kind of players that are there in the ocean, the amount of data that they collect is massive. Think of offshore energy companies. They're collecting petabytes worth of data every single operation that they end up doing. So, but the sad part today is only a fraction of that data gets analyzed. Just to give you an example, when they conduct like 10, 20 hours of underwater survey, less than 10% of that data is actually being utilized. And the reason for that is people are manually looking at that data today. And that is where we are bringing in the AI component to this space because this space has all of the data gathering capability, but has not been bought into the AI realm yet. And with our technology, we are seeing how to automate this process of not just looking at visual data, but other kinds of data, because vision is the least prominent one in the underwater realm. It cannot travel a lot. So you generally end up using sonar and other forms of multimodal data. And our platform can take in all of these multimodal forms of data and see how to improve the efficiency in the current existing operations. And a lot of these things are also to do with our sustainable development goals, because if you think of how the data is captured, sonar data does not give you any kind of interesting information of what is happening underwater. It is just a 3D representation of the space. So there are other forms of data that you can collect to understand exactly what is happening. And underwater space is one of the most ecologically sensitive space. You have millions of different varieties of organisms, and when you do some kind of construction or do some kind of monitoring, if you are destroying this ecosystem, it has a lot of chain reaction kind of problems, and we are seeing how to solve that in a much more sustainable way, so that we are not using just the sonar data, but we are complementing it with other forms of data and ensuring that all of the marine biology is sort of preserved.
Faisal, if I may, says what technologies benefit the most for AI. I think for the history of human civilization, the pure science has helped technologies, right? So advancement in pure science, 20 years will show up in technologies. First time what we are witnessing is a technology called AI is going to help pure sciences. And so first time you will see the loop going backwards and feeding back. And the most recent example of that is the Nobel Prize winners were the AI scientists. So I think we are about to uncover an unbelievable potential, because imagine if every scientific branch evolves faster, from protein research to physics to metal and everything else. What are the possibilities, right? And so sky's the limit today.
Indeed, and that feeds also to the point you were discussing prior to the panel, is that we are at a point in history where this is the first time in which we have a common language between humans and machines. So it's not only that we have the tools that are allowing us to go to these dimensions that you're speaking about, but it's one in which collaboration and conversational AI can help us drive that discussion between machines and human over the second period. Eric, I want to come back to you, and similar to what we've heard now, I think people often assume that there is complex, sophisticated, expensive AI software that is required, given sometimes the proliferation of the very large models that we're seeing that requires few millions and sometimes hundreds of millions for building, training, inferring, and what have you. Mm-hmm. Is that the case going forward? What's your view? Do you feel that dynamic will change, or that will maintain?
Yeah, I think by breaking apart the layers of the AI stack, right, you have your foundational models that, in many cases have the billions of parameter explosion that we were discussing before, and some of the advances in quantum and how that can help there. But having more domain-specific, frankly, small language models, in our view, some of the providers who are enabling that, maybe those companies themselves become large and significant. So for example, at Addepar, we've partnered in quite a deep way with Databricks, and we're using Databricks Data Lakehouse to organize data in the first place. But by having some of the implementation details in their Unity catalog, we can train our own small language models using a highly normalized and clean data set that we have that we're able to use to benefit each one of our clients. So I think that I consider Addepar still a small, medium-sized company. It doesn't need to be terribly expensive from our client's perspective, but they're able to benefit from all the advances that Addepar is making using AI. They don't have to do that themselves. They don't have to train their own model. They can use the models that we're training, use the inference of that to just drive the level of operating leverage and drive the efficiencies, up-level the experience that their clients and their advisors are getting, and most importantly, just having timely, accurate, complete results whenever they want them. So I think that same pattern can be applied, to your point about the interaction between science and technology now running in reverse. Yeah. You can completely imagine a world where having more domain-specific models just allows, the cycle speed of innovation to just accelerate, and it doesn't need to be that costly. I think as we go from the many hundreds of billion parameter models to much more tuned models with exactly the right data, underpinned by the right domain model.
Very good. And I want to shift gears a little bit, because as we speak about the advancements of AI, I think there's some dynamics that are coming into play. One is the changing logic of competition, right? So companies historically have competed on the supply, or competed on the anchoring the demand. But with AI, there's a logic, especially with the holders of the big models, on the pace of learning. So the faster you can learn as a company, especially with your data, with your customers, with your underlying assets, and use that for centralizing intelligence, that's becoming the key competitive edge that you're also seeing. However, with this as well, there is significant changes to the dynamics of the job market and to talent, and the idea of talent, the talent ideas and capital, that concentration is also in flux at the moment. We spoke earlier about there are estimates that over the next decade there will be 100 million jobs that will be displaced or changed, and there will be new 100 million jobs that are coming in, but with a completely different skill set. What's your view on how do we manage that transition, and how does leadership specifically look like in the era of transitioning into a more AI hybrid model between people and machines?
That's not an easy one. That's not an easy one. Perhaps we should try to make the difference between the new generation and the one which is already at work. Clearly, the one which is already at work will need, I would say, care and attention to be upskilled, reskilled, if possible. It will not be always possible. And without any say additional solution, then what I call national solidarity will apply to help this generation to live. For the new generation, definitely there is a vast, I would say, avenue if they embrace more and more STEM, math, physics. We need more and more engineers, for sure. We already lack engineers in Europe, in the US, for reasons we could come back on later on if you think it's interesting, but you will really lack engineers. And when we look at the potential that has been described in terms of AI, in terms of enabling technologies like quantum computing or quantum sensors, to not breed another breed of quantum, cyber as well, because you will not have any AI future without cyber as well. We do need more and more engineers. Hence, the best advice I could give to my younger kids is really to embrace STEM. That's probably one of the most promising ways to have a bright future in their career in the future, yes.
Very good. I think that's always a controversial topic, right? Depending on the person you're asking, some people push more for STEM, some others say STEM is going to be taken care of by AI or the bulk of those fields, and then you need to do more the creative, the empathetic, the type of jobs.
We need both. We need both.
Yeah. But it's definitely not an answer that anybody will be able to predict at the moment. But you've mentioned security, Markus. I want to use that to link also to the work that you're doing. Because also with new forms of computing, we're rethinking the security paradigms that has been established for a long period of time. What are your thoughts on that particular piece in relation to AI and in relation to quantum and security?
Yeah, also a very important aspect, and you mentioned it. Cybersecurity becomes even more important because we move more and more data and operations into the digital space, right? And the biggest threat actually is the quantum threat. We know today that every classical encryption will be hacked by a mature enough quantum computer. So regardless of what you do, whether you store data, whether you move them, you have to make it quantum secure. Otherwise, this AI evolution will not work because the data will be lost and stolen. That's why quantum security is one of the big paradigms which we also have to tackle. And you see that just a few weeks ago, the American regulatory body, NIST, has published its first standards on so-called PQC, post-quantum cryptography. That means now really in particular mission-critical infrastructure organizations should or have to move to quantum secure communication protocols. That will be a race as AI evolves and we put more and more data into the digital space, that we cope with these growing threats of quantum machines. But also, to end with a positive note, the flip side of that quantum threat is truly quantum secure communication protocols is the end game in cybersecurity. If you have a truly quantum key distribution protocol which uses quantum phenomena, as long as the laws of physics don't change in this universe, this is ultimate safe. So I think it will be a race, and we have to wake up to this threat, but we can tackle it.
And I think one interesting aspect I would add to what you just said is to say the collaboration between companies, institutes, governments is key here. One anecdote was mentioned that the criminals at the moment are collaborating faster than authorities, and that's why they're not able to pick up. So I think in that realm of creating, let's say, quantum supremacy or creating AI supremacy while maintaining some sort of collaboration is key there. Shishir, I want to come back to you and last two questions before we conclude the panel. There's a lot of knowledge as we speak about this transition into an AI-enabled future or a bionic future between machines and AI. There's a lot of knowledge that's not on the internet today, that's not in the specific data sets. It's acquired knowledge with different skill set by the people that are on the fields today. How do we make sure that that transition captures and uses that particular knowledge in the next generation?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because we sort of have a reverse phenomena in the offshore sector, where the number of workers are drastically reducing. So not a lot of people want to go offshore and do all of the things that have been done. So there's a huge gap in the kind of skilled workers that are needed to power the energy of the future. But the biggest challenge right now is to how to capture these different kinds of knowledge, because these are not things that are written down. They are piloting the ROV, and they see something and they take action instinctively. How can we sort of capture these different things? So as part of my research work at Tufts University, I'm working with eye tracking technology and seeing how we can utilize that to capture these different forms of non-verbal, non-written kind of data, and understand that to sort of capture the expertise that these people have. And this again sort of paves the way to make the AI a little bit more accessible for people, because this helps with sort of AR use cases as well, where you can capture this data and show step-by-step sort of guide to repair the underwater structures, and gamification of that would help the Global South in sort of learning these different aspects.
Very good. I don't want to think of neural links connected to anybody's brains to try to capture the existing knowledge. But maybe as a final question, as we're transitioning into this, Mir, we spoke about the governance of AI generally and its implications on ethics, responsibility, and what have you. I think one interesting aspect of AI, specifically Gen AI, is that it forced us as humanity to put forth our values and articulate them in a more concise way, because we needed to embed those in a system somehow. Yeah. And those values differ between jurisdictions. What's ethical in one jurisdiction is different. What's considered responsible in a way, or the social norms might be different, and so on. What are your thoughts on how do we balance between the innovation that are we needing to push AI faster and the controls and the regulations and the frameworks that we need to put in place to ensure this aspect of ethics and governance around the AI models?
I think it's a very important topic. I think governance and ethical use of AI, responsible AI, is paramount. I think I'm a technology company, and I believe that we need to be regulated at some point. The challenge is this is moving so fast that it is hard to figure out what those regulations look like. But I think eventually some structure in future makes sense. And you regulate what you know and then keep working on it. I think certain governance framework, for example, labeling AI-generated content and not feeding AI-generated content back to the models, so that it goes in a virtuous, in a negative cycle. So there are some obvious things that we could do today to solve some of the future problems. I think one thing, though, to be careful about is you can over-govern, and you could get into paralysis analysis. So the key always in this kind of transition is to see what are no-regret moves. So for example, if you are in a healthcare, maybe in a care side you have to think about, because human lives are involved. But in administration and patient care outside of the doctor's area, there are so many areas that are up for grab. And there is little bad that could happen with today's technology. So key always is in this kind of technology is not to wait till you know everything. Try and figure out where you can move with today's governance and wait for certain areas to evolve.
Super. Great parting thoughts. Thank you very much, and thank you for the rest of the panel for this insightful conversation. I would encourage you to carry on the conversations with the panelists post the panel, but that was great, and thank you very much.